All right, there's my connection. Hello. Yeah, live. Yeah, everybody. Hey, everyone, and welcome to another Steam Queens live podcast stream, whichever. It's us, your Steam Queens, Charlie, Megan, Esme, Kim. Esme, your mic is muted.
No, it's all good because there's a lot of
There you
background.
go.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there it is. I got you. No worries. I didn't realize you did it on purpose. But yeah, hey everyone, and thank you for joining us, whether it's live or a bit later. But thank you for joining us. We're going to go straight into it today, aren't we, ladies? Because as you would have seen, we are doing Monster May. We decided to read some monster books, a specific one called The Lady and the Orc, which we're going to discuss later, but a few of us have read some others, and I think Esme has read the most.
I've been loving life. This has been great.
Yeah, I think we should just go straight into it. Like, let us know what we started at. Hold on. Or what monster books you've read.
Oh gosh, what haven't I read this month? Literally, I swear, all I've been reading this month is Monsters Book, and I've been having the time of my life. It's been great. So what have I read? I've read a lot from C.M. Costa, so Girls Weekend and
I read
Girls Parties, I think, the second one, which has just recently come out. Then I discovered, obviously, The Lady and the Orc, which was a very good, fun read. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And Tiffany Roberts. So very new authors for me. I believe Tiffany Roberts is a husband and wife writer duo. Which,
really? Just under the one name? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's her first name, and I think it's both their first names actually. So Tiffany and Robert, hence Tiffany Roberts.
Oh, I see.
I think
Unagi. Yeah.
But yeah, their books have been amazing. So I read His Darkest Craving, and my newest obsession is Ensnared, the Spider Mates trilogy. It does include a giant man spider with mandibles. Love it. It's really good. Now, to be fair, it's really, really good because the plot is amazing. It's like Ice Planet Barbarians, but with giant spiders in like a jungle world. And yeah, really enjoying that. It's good.
I'm not. I don't know if I could. The mandibles. I can do. I think we were having this conversation. You can't do the tusks, but the mandibles are fine. Tusks for me are okay, but the mandibles is just no. Just can't.
It's the whole spider element for me.
Yeah,
I mean, there was the N.M. Nascosta one. Is it like I can't remember what it was called now. Mabel. It was like a mini novella one kind of thing, and it was a bit much for me already. The guy having like the 6 legs and stuff like that, and I was just like, no, I'm not.
I can just imagine him like scurrying over. It just like freaks me out.
But Esme, the mandibles. Yes. Do they use the mandibles for something?
So the mandibles are mandibles, but they actually come from here. So they're not inside the mouth. They are like mandibles which come out here, and they can move them and whatever. But yeah.
I'm not with it.
I mean, he is an alien, so he does have tentacles in other places at other times in their relationships, which is quite. But the actual,
I'm just okay. I am more intrigued by the couple that write this. Do you think they like trial things out and then write it afterwards? Do you think they write it and then trial it out? Like, I'm more interested in them, to be honest. You've got to be a pretty unique couple to not just write smut together, but like write monster smut together.
Yeah, it's very specific, isn't it? Yeah. And it's just like, okay, if she's really liking all of these extra bits, I mean, is the husband feeling like he's not up to par?
Or is he dressing up like that? Is he trying things out?
Is it prosthetics? I don't know. I just don't get it.
In my head, he's like a you get those people that create the costumes on like horror movies and stuff. He's like a prosthetic designer, and like he's brought some like of the costumes home, and that's how they get them into up a story in my head now.
No, but that makes total sense. I mean, sorry, Kim. What did you
say?
say?
No, go ahead. No.
No, I was saying I went to Comic-Con yesterday, and obviously these are people who take cosplay really seriously. They are absolutely amazing when it comes to dressing up and things like that. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Star Wars, and you know, like in The Mandalorian, and there's that kind of orange face lady, and she's got like these tentacle blue and white things coming out of her head. There were so many people dressed like that, and which was amazing in and of itself. But my issue was, what did you make that out of? Like, it was soft and spongy. And I'm like, what is it? It was like some of it was plastic, some of it was, but it was just the time and dedication. So if they can do that stuff, I don't see why her husband can't get, you know,
creative.
Get creative. I think that leads us on nicely, because we know it's Monster May, but I think it leads us on nicely to what is the appeal of monsters. So obviously Megan touched on saying, you know, mandibles are one thing, but tusks are another. We have wings, we have tentacles, we have multiple penises.
I don't think there's a word for it because it doesn't really exist in human form.
Yeah,
unless you're in an orgy, obviously, then there will be peni around you. But I can't imagine that's written down too often.
No,
so
it's like, you know,
the grammar is probably ignored.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is it in the dictionary? Can you find it? Is it peni? It must be peni, because anything that like octopi is like
Hold on, I'm going to look it up.
All right, Google's it. What is the appeal of monsters? What would you say, Kim? Because it is a massive influx right now. Everybody's reading it. It's just, you know, the floodgates have opened.
Yeah, for me, what is interesting is the novelty effect, I think, because it's so different from regular sex. So, and their appendages that that it's like, I'm curious to find out what it does and what you can do with it. Like the wings are sensitive, the knob, and Ice Planet Barbarians, the little thing they have.
Oh, it's like the spur.
The spur, yeah. It does something, that I don't know.
But there's a level of, like, obviously, because we've done the reverse harem episode, and we get why, you know, just plain as day on paper, why that would be appealing. The kind of the worship element, you know, the extra peens. Is that what it was, Meg? Is that how you pronounce it?
Peenies or penises. Okay. Peenies is more of like a medical term, apparently, so a bit clinical. So just penises, I think we can.
I think peni's funnier. I like peni better. But no, there's that understanding of why, you know, multiple partners may be, you know, wanted, kind of thing. But what is it about non-humans that has got us all in a bit of a tizzy? Because it's just like, different sex is one thing, but, you know, alternative sex with, like, as you said, appendages and bits and people that are green, and like, what is it? What do we think it is? Like, I don't know. I'm just putting it out there as the starter. What is it?
For me, it's not actually the monsters themselves or the alien. It's what I really loved. I started off with Ice Planet Barbarians, and this is what I quite like about Lady and the Orc as well. It's like the monsters themselves they act so, like, it's almost like they're so opposite to what they look like. They make them so sweet. And Lady and the Orc isn't as much, I have to admit, but Ice Planet Barbarians are great for this, and quite a lot of the other monster romances. They're just so kind of, they love their mates, and all they want is to help them. And it's that kind of Neanderthal element. And I suppose you could probably quite easily write a caveman romance like this as well. It wouldn't necessarily have to be monsters, but I really like the fact that they like absolutely worship the ground that their mates walk on. They would do anything for them. They make sure they eat before they protect them. It's that like harking back to that like Neanderthal kind of state, I suppose, of being kind of worshipped for being a woman.
Because
Go on, Kim.
Oh, sorry. It's funny that we think that's appealing, while in modern day life we want to be so independent. Yeah. And yet it's something that attracts us about monster smut.
No, it's
There's
one
a lot
of those
to unpack
things
there by a therapist.
There really is. I think it's one of those things that it's always down to choice, if that makes sense. So it's like you want to choose to be coddled and worshipped and blah, blah. But if somebody just comes in and says, oh, I'm going to do everything, well, I can do it myself. Like, I don't like, if I choose to not do it myself, that's a completely different story. It's like, I will have conversations with my partner when he'll like buy me things or, just out of the blue. And if, like, for example, if I'm a bit broke that month kind of thing and he buys something, it makes me feel weird because I couldn't have bought it myself. But if I had the money, I would have accepted it. Fine. I'd be like, oh, thanks. I'll spend your money and not mine. But it makes me feel a bit differently if I'm not able to do it myself. Does that make sense? So I think there's something in that we like to have the choice to dismiss or say no or whatever. But, once that, as I said, what's it? That kind of basic nuclear Neanderthal-ish feeling is still quite prevalent in us as women. And I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that. It's just, why have we got this extra interest in it being, as I said, in someone green or blue or someone with wings? Because we could read that same dynamic with humans. So what's the difference? What's the difference? What do you think, Ezzy? Oh, sorry, Kim.
No, do you want to go ahead, Esme?
No, after you.
Oh, okay. I think what is also appealing is that they always think the human women are extremely beautiful. And I was thinking about that. And then I thought they don't have a reference. They don't know what is the beauty standard for humans, right? So to them, it's...
I think in IPB, though, they think the human women are a bit weird looking.
They think they're funny looking,
yeah. They're like all this like weak, squidgy, pale thing. But then they want a mate so badly. I can't remember what they call them, but they want a mate so badly. They're like, I don't care what my mate looks like as long as I have a mate. So like they're that like narrow with it. Could be anybody. It doesn't matter.
I love the fact that they call breast teats. That bit always floored me because they're like rare. They're few female Sakui. Like they're kind of quite. They're like. What's the word? Like really athletic kind of thing. So I think they don't really have squidgy boobs. They've got more athletic, strong kind of firm boobs. So the fact that the human girls have got little pokey ones, they think it's really interesting.
It's the third nipple for me when they talk about that third nipple. I'm just like, I couldn't take it seriously. Like I could just not take them seriously at all.
I think
and they're always so eager as well. They're always so like eager to please.
I think that is one of, we won't go too much because I think that's the next thing we're going to talk about. Actually, we could move on to Lady and the Orc because that was one thing that was a bit different for me in the sense of the Ice Planet barbarians. Yes, they care about them and want to, breed them and all that kind of stuff. But they are really sweet. They're basically children. Sorry. Pause. They're not children. They're not children, but they're really simple-minded, and it's just really sweet because they're very black and white. It's why do you want to do this or do you want to do on that? And it's lovely to see them grow and learn new things. Move over blue guys, bring in grayish green guys. I'm not sure how that's a color, but whatever. Bring in the green guys, and they're just all of I'm going to bend you over. I'm going to throw you over this thing. I'm going to carry you up. They give absolutely no fucks. And I was here for that. I was entirely here for it because it had the sweetness, but it also had the like vulgarity. Dare I say it? God, which was really good. Was I the only one that really appreciated that? Do I need to go and sit in a corner or something? I don't know.
I was on the fence. I was on the fence, not with the vulgarity, but the. He was quite. I enjoyed the fact that he was morally grey. I enjoyed the plot of Lady and the Orc more than I enjoyed the plot of a lot of the IPB ones. I thought they had more of a plot. I enjoyed the fact that he was morally grey and he did some very questionable things in the book. I did enjoy that, but it also made for a more kind of like polarizing read, I'd say. So sometimes you'd really like him and you think he was really sweet, and then other times when he's like shackling her. And like she's having to like work in the kitchen and he's threatening to like, use her in front of everyone. Like that was a bit hard to read. And like that was a bit, I mean, she was good because she was like, screw you. And I loved her for that. But he was definitely a lot more morally grey than the cute little kind of, not little, but the cute big blue guys who just do nothing bad to their people.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Sorry. What I was going to say was, what I didn't like about Grimoire was that he kept apologizing afterward, but he didn't change his behavior.
That's basically a narcissist, right?
Yeah, and he felt
that's
quite manipulative, but he felt manipulative a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like, it really annoyed me when she pointed out like all the bad stuff he did, and then he started crying.
Yes,
and I was like, don't cry, just change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But bless him, he didn't particularly know how, I don't think, because like you said, oh no, we didn't say, because we spoke about that before we started. There's minimal women. So maybe that kind of empathy to be taught and appreciate, you know, the female form and feelings and all that kind of stuff wasn't particularly taught, because they get taken, they get taken from their mums, so they don't really get that extra, you know, teaching of how to be more sensitive.
Or they just watch their dads like treat them in that way.
Particularly a good guy anyway.
No, exactly. There's apparently a prequel book about that. I think that's the new one that's coming out, so that would be interesting to see. As I've changed the title, The Lady and the Orc, we've just kind of gone into it. Before we continue, who wants to basically say what it's about? Because we're just talking about people and we haven't said who they are. So yeah, go on, Ezzy. You've been a bit quiet. Let us know what it's about.
So Lady and the Orc is basically, I think it doesn't really say this explicitly, but it's kind of set in the middle age fantasy world, you know, and there's a lot of animosity between the orcs and the humans. Like, the humans are really scared of the orcs because they go in, steal all the women, and apparently they die when they give birth to all the orc offspring or whatever. So yeah, they don't like the orcs basically. And the main character, Jules, is the name Jules?
Jewel. It's just Jewel with no S, I think.
Oh, Jewel. Okay. So Jewel is in a very abusive relationship with her husband, and he sods off one day and basically leaves his castle undefended. Of course, the orcs come in, ransack everything, and Jewel gets kidnapped by Grimar, who you later find out is the orc captain. And he's got an ulterior motive for taking her, essentially kidnapping her and taking her into underneath the mountain, the Orc Mountain or whatever. And basically he says that she's his mate, and they get busy, you know, and she is inexplicably drawn to him, but it takes them a while to come to terms with their intimate emotional relationships with each other, which is what I really enjoyed, is that you can have a very physical relationship, but then the emotion comes later. Like, you actually you saw how their relationship built, because in the beginning, as you said, he's a dick, honestly. Like, he treats her really bad, and she is so firm, and she's like, no, F you, you know, I'm not taking any of this shit. And brilliant, you know, she's just there always thinking of ways to try to escape, but also kind of starting to like being with the orcs in a proper true family. So yeah, it was a very good read.
No, it was an interesting read. Like we touched on a bit earlier, the orcs are a lot different to the kind of sweet talking Ice Planet barbarians, or even some of like the orcs and elves that are in C.M. Nascosta's books that are all quite that can be quite sweet and appealing. And as much as their emotional relationship does go leaps and bounds, which makes it, you know, quote unquote okay, there were a lot of physical elements that were a bit like, okay, where are we going with this? Okay, because it was a bit much. I mean, we'll go on to the orc. The orc spunk, like, no filter here. We'll go on to the orc spunk in a minute, but even just the physical element, and I'll say, like, my disclaimer, I'm a fan of the big bulking guy, whether he's human, orc, whatever. I'm really down for the caveman-esque, bulky, muscly dude, right? So when they've got like this, flighty, thin female, and it's all like, you know, I'm going to break you in half, and it's all sexy and stuff, I'm here for it. But this was very rapey. It was very, very rapey, in the sense of, like, she shouldn't be able to walk after this, and not in a I could have walked for days type thing. It should be somebody should have dislocated a hip, because that doesn't fit. They kept going on about how massive everything was, but magically they were able to accommodate, and I think that kind of annoyed me, because
they really described it in really specific detail about her trying to accommodate it as well. And like what I didn't like is he really seemed to pressure her into doing certain things just because like to like please him. Certain things, it's been my dream for, you know, to have someone fully seated on me and stuff like that. And so she literally like forces herself to do it just so it makes him happy. Other things that, I don't know, I felt like the character kind of took some bigger leaps and bounds than I would have expected her to in such a short time, from like how quickly she like submits to him to how quickly she starts doing stuff that she seems very uncomfortable about. And like a lot of that just felt to me like it was pressure. It was like kind of Stockholm syndrome that wasn't really explored. So I found it an interesting plot, and I definitely think it had like the morally grey elements to it, but like it wasn't like the kind of super sweet romantic kind of monster smut that you read in a lot of the other stuff. They kept the monstrosity part of it, I think, which was interesting.
Definitely. And I think I appreciate that, even if there were certain places that I didn't particularly like it, because it's very easy to just make a really, shall I say, flowery romance, but just make the guy a gargoyle, for example, and then it's just like, oh, that's what makes it different. Well, no, this is just every other story, isn't it? You just change the protagonist a bit, but she went all in with everything.
Exactly.
As I said, I've read a bit more of them. I'm on book 3 and after some like novellas and things like that. And what I wanted to touch on, you were saying it felt very like pressure coming from him, and totally agree. And even in later books, that's still the idea, that's still the premise. But it's also this idea that the women feel almost empowered by being able to take it all or receive it all, kind of thing, to show that they are strong enough to bear orc sons. Like there's almost an honor in being able to do it, basically. And they, as I said, as the books go on, there is more of that like pride in being, you know, that voyeuristic element. We'll talk about that later. And you know, there was this pride and honor in showing that they were a bad bitch, and like, and they could, you know, do all of these that they could do all of these things. And it was just, I found that quite entertaining. I didn't particularly like it, but I did find it entertaining in that, you know, they made it that sort of thing.
I do think there's a fine line though between like them feeling empowered and doing it, but also Grimar, who is quite manipulative with it, I think. But then he was a morally grey character. He was manipulative.
Don't read book 2 then.
Pardon?
Don't read book 2 then.
Well, that's the thing. But I respect the author for doing her like monster romance a bit differently to like a lot of the other monster romances out there. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's an interesting one to kind of like unpack. It was a lot more of like an organic romance, I think, than like
no. You know. It definitely ticked a lot of boxes that I really enjoyed. Let's talk spunk. I'm trying to keep a straight face, I'm sorry. Let's talk spunk, people.
That was a lot of it.
It was
very descriptive.
I couldn't.
I
thought you guys were over exaggerating. Like you were talking about it, and I was like, oh, they're probably, you know, it's probably just every single like chapter had oodles and oodles of this stuff.
What was the word?
Running down their legs.
Oh my god.
But already when he took it out, it was already overflowing and everything. And
sorry, I'm stuttering.
Like,
it was vile.
He must have had.
They were like him. He was like completely wet, and she was completely wet, and the sheets were soaked, and then it would just all come out after. Oh, it was.
I saw even while he was floor everywhere.
Yes, and like mopping it up, even while he was in there, like it was coming out the sides. Then she would stand up, and it would. At one point, I think was there one, or I might have made it up. It might not even be this book. It might be a different one. But like he finishes, and it's like it lifts her off him. Oh my. I absolutely lost it. She was physically moved by the force of it. I'm just not.
This is a woman writing this, though. I don't understand. Like, that's what I don't get. Like, this sounds like something a man would write. Like, oh, yeah, it's got so much spunk. That's my amazing impression of a man, apparently. But like, for a woman to write this, and like, also the fact that it tastes honeyed, and like, It was just
that,
like,
you know what, that was an interesting part of it. Like, she gave reason for there being so much because they like eat it, and like it almost has nutritional value.
No, honestly, that made me feel so sick.
Like,
so wrong.
I was absolutely fine with the whole soaking the sheets or whatever and coming out like a geezer. I mean, I was fine with that. But what got me was when, frankly, you know, when she goes down, gives him a blowy, whatever, she's there literally sucking it as though as if
like it's a hose pipe,
a Ribena cup or something. She's there sucking it out of a straw.
Yeah.
And he says to her, "Stop! It's gonna make you sick." That for me, that part for me, honestly, I thought I was going to throw up. I really did.
But the part with the baby, where the shaman says, "Oh, you need to feed the baby a lot of the orc seed."
Yeah.
Like, oh no. So wrong.
It was horrific stuff. It's horrific stuff. In the third one, like the girl's like really skinny, and the doctory one says the same thing. It was just like, yeah, you must have orc seed like 3 times a day, like their meals.
It's disgusting. Honestly.
But no, it was terrible. But again, I respected that she did give a reason. At the end of the day, like, if you're going to create this funky, a terrible one, but if you are going to create like this world of, you know, spunk-filled orcs and all this kind of stuff, you know, it's cool that she thought that much about it, if that makes sense. And as I said, reading more books, the world is opening up so much. Like, you know, they have religions, and each of the different orcs have like a role in the mountains. So Grimar is obviously the captain of all of them. And then the second book, there's like a, you know, he's called the speaker. So it's kind of like the person that, you know, speaks truth to everybody. And, you know, you can come to him with your problems and he will let the clans know and all this kind of stuff. And then there's like a priest, and, you know, she's done so well. I shouldn't say despite the content, but she's done so well with such smutty, silly content, but made it something really viable and really well thought out, which I really appreciated, and what keeps me kind of reading them, even though they are a bit long. I do think they're a bit too long. Plot is good, but it's just like, okay, especially when you have them, like the solution is right there. Like, you know, she could have said this by now and gone outside or not gone outside, and they just don't, and then keep doing spunky stuff, and you're like, stop doing that. It's getting on my nerves. But no, I did enjoy that one. Is there anything else?
Before we move on from the spunk, and this is a little bit off topic, but that was bad. That was gross. But it's not as bad as the one that Esme was reading, where the person, the world is so poisonous to the person that the only sustenance she gets is from these guys' spunk that tastes like cinnamon, chocolate, and then because she can't breathe in the atmosphere, they have to like spunk all over her so she can breathe. Now that is just, I'm sorry, Esme, you might not have wanted to admit you were reading that book, but that is just like a whole new level of craziness with spunk.
You know, the best part about that book was that when she had all 3, it made a full dessert, apparently.
Stop it. That is horrific stuff. That's
women writing this. It sounds like something a man has written. Like, I don't know.
No, it's clearly a kink. It's clearly what they're into, because, you know, you can write sex scenes, as I assume most of us have done. And, you know, you might put a bit of your own experiences in there because it's what you know, best writing is, you know, from what you know. But it's clearly something she enjoys. I'm sorry, because when it gets to the butt sex, when it gets to the voyeurism, she explains that a bit too well. Like, I wouldn't say explains it, but like the feelings of it, and how she, you know, the empowerment of being watched and being brave. Like, there's something about it that rings very true, if that makes sense. And it's just, it's good on a writer level, but it's on a reader level, it's like, what do you get up to on the weekends?
Either that, or it's just like a fantasy that she's like. I often think a lot of these books are fantasies that the author is kind of acting out, but like within the pages of something, as opposed to outside the pages. Yeah.
How did we feel about the voyeurism though?
That didn't really bother me, to be honest.
No,
the voyeurism
really
part of it. It was purely as we've discussed.
Is this the book? As I said, because I've read others, it keeps blurring. Is this the one with her under the table?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So basically, there's a scene, everyone, where Grimar is having like a war council. Is that right? So he's speaking with the leaders and the other members of other clans and stuff. And Jewel, she honors him by giving him blowies under the table, like and everyone knows what's going on. And I was like,
and afterwards, he's literally like, "Oh, you've given me such a gift. You've honored me so much," and it's just a bit.
It's just a bit.
So I kind of got I felt like she explained the voyeuristic stuff really well though, because I read Neon Gods recently, which has a big voyeuristic element, but I just never really felt the voyeuristic element was that real in Neon Gods. He claims to have this whole thing of loving people watching and wanting people to watch them, but then he kind of only does it a couple of times and doesn't really want to go back to it, and he seems too nice, whereas Grimar, I don't know, the characters felt like they were that type of, had that type of kink. Whereas in Neon Gods, it just didn't feel like it. Just felt like it was written in there for the sake of it.
For the sake of it.
Didn't really,
Didn't really I've not read Neon Gods, but definitely, like I was saying, the voyeurism was definitely written in a way that was like, okay, maybe I could get down with this. I started thinking a bit more about, that's not as kind of scary as it might have been, sort of thing. But I could respect how she got into it. As a cheap spoiler, again, having read some of the others, when the new girls come in and they're like, oh my god, people are watching, and you see old Jewel in the back of the cave getting her clap on. So the new girls have to get broken in again because they don't, they think it's a bit weird. But there's a scene and it's like, oh my gosh, Jewel has been completely invested. Is all I'm saying. She's all there. It's great. It's absolutely great. Sorry, I'm really, really loving it. But no, what are we giving the Lady in New York before we move on? Out of 3 or 5? 3?
Out of 5, I think.
Out of 5, go. Yeah. Oh yes, what was our Steam thing? What Steam?
We've got the chilies, and then we've got the chains.
All right, okay.
I think we have 5 chilies and 5 chains.
All right, okay.
Chilies are for smart heat.
For smart heat, yeah. Let me find what the names are. But
the thing is, I wouldn't give it very high for smart heat because of the fluids just put me off so much. I didn't find the smart very hot in that book.
Okay.
It was just there and it happening, but it was just very messy and fluidy.
If you like that stuff, maybe, but if you don't, not so much. Okay, so we've got the chilies, we've got steamless, which is 1 chili, sweet heat, which is 2, steamed up is 3, smoke show is 4, and steam fest is 5. Are we giving it any of those?
I'd probably give it a 3.
Yeah.
Steamed up, all the tension.
Yeah,
just in the middle. But then for kink, which is what we were saying, so kinkless, kinky, major kink, kink fest, or kinkapalooza.
I think with all the fluids, it's got to be 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think it's a kink fest.
Yeah,
I think it's a kink fest. That which is 4. Sorry, I think it's a kink fest. Yeah, because as I said, there's the other books delve into different things. So there's a dom sub one, and the kind of tying up thing, each orc kind of has their own thing that they like. There's a pain one, like a sadistic-y one. Yeah, so I think it's kink fest. So kink 4 kinks out of 5, and out of 5 for the Lady and the Orc, which was, we enjoyed it either way. I've spent this whole time laughing, so I enjoyed it. So this is one. So we're halfway through our talk now, and I feel so bad. Just cut in. Keir isn't with us today, and I forgot to mention that at the very beginning. But she had a family thing, and that's why our 5th queen isn't here with us today. But she's here in spirit, and we'll miss you, and we'll see you next month. Yay. So, so moving on to the other half. This is something we've discussed previously before the live, but what defines a monster? So earlier on, we had what's the appeal of monsters and, you know, why they do this, that, and the other. But what makes something a monster? And I have a slightly different opinion to Esme. But what makes someone a monster? I say monster. Monster. Why? What do we think? Who's going to go first?
I think there's a difference though between being a monster and being a monster love interest.
Okay.
In the sense that, like, well, I don't know. I feel like I had a thought of this. I think this goes back to, for example, my whole thing is that you can be a monster in the Monster Smut book, but it's only really a Monster Smut book if something non-human about them is used in sex, be it for sexual stimulation, or if they have, like in Ice Planet Barbarians, that little spur thingy or tentacles or whatever. And I think that's very different to somebody, say, off the top of my head, like Hunt, for example, who's an angel and has wings, which are clearly, obviously not human, but because they play no role in sex, I don't think you would necessarily class him as a monster. Even though he's not human, if that makes sense.
All right, but that makes sense. But just to throw a spanner in your works, earlier you said Reese's wings make him a monster. And is that because he uses them for sexy time?
Yes, because there's a bit on his wings or whatever. If you stroke it or whatever, it can actually make them, you know.
Make them come, yeah.
Basically, yeah. So that, to me, that whole, they use their wings for sexual stimulation. Whereas...
Okay, so, yeah, sorry, go.
Sorry, no, just saying, like, I don't think, like, if memory recalls, I don't think Hunt and his wings do anything in terms of sexy time.
No, I don't think it's mentioned. If anybody's read, have you read Crescent City, Kim?
Yeah, I'm reading the second one now.
Oh, you're reading it now? Okay,
yeah.
I'll call you back in 10 years once you finished it. Because that book is fucking long. I don't have any time for that stupid book. I hate it so much. But no, so no, I don't think he does. I think where we differed, so for me, anybody that is basically not human is a monster. And I get that orcs, for example, you know, they look human but for their different colored skin and tusks and, you know, all those kind of things. But generally speaking, anybody who's not human, even if they have wings, which is, you know, kind of an exterior appendage for me, is fine. But if they're walking around with 2 legs, 10 fingers, 10 toes, they're human. They could have wings or a tail, but I still think they're human. When it comes to orcs or, you know, minotaurs or just anything that doesn't have like a human face, for me is a monster. What do you think?
What about shifters? So they're human, but then they become wolves. I know that's paranormal, but would we say they're monster or not?
Having written a paranormal, I think it only makes them a monster if you're having intercourse with them in their wolf state. But generally speaking, they're humans just with the ability to change. But if the paranormal book has them in this state of wolfness all the time, i.e. they walk on their hind legs, but they're hairy and they've got a snout and they've got large paws and claws and all this kind of thing, then it's a monster book. But a shifter, they walk about that 99% of the time as humans. You know, they have penis and vagina and, you know, like they just are able to then change, but they don't engage in sexual activity as wolves. Well, at least in mine, when they do, both people are wolves. It's not one will be a wolf and one will be a human. Then you'll just be having sex with a dog. Like, what? That makes no sense. Like, that makes absolutely no sense. So that's from my perspective. But yeah, shifters are humans until they change.
See, what I find difficult with the definition between monster and non-monster, it's not just, for me, it's more about like whether it's something that's like earthbound. Like, for example, like the spiders, they don't feel like monsters to me. They just feel like spiders. And like, I know it falls under monster smut, but for me, monsters is like the Minotaur. I know that's kind of like a bull, but it's more of like a mythological figure, or an orc, or, you know, even I find like Fae more monster than like the Mothman, for example, even though they both got wings. Yeah, because like a Mothman is a moth. Just like a human is a human, whereas a monster is a monster. It's like Frankenstein. Like a monster to me is like the type of monster you have in your nightmares, and it is like a monster. There's something a bit different about it to just being a like anthropomorphized spider. A monster is a monster. It's really hard to explain though, if that makes sense.
I do kind of get it. I think for me, I was using monster more of a general term. So anyone who's just not human is a monster. But I do get that, you know, an orc is a different type of monster to a gargoyle or to a mothman or to a spider, etc., etc., etc. But just generally speaking, for me, I was using it more generally. A monster is just somebody non-human. But that I found it interesting what you said about Fae. So obviously you're referring to the winged ones in Akatar, basically, because then you've got the non-winged ones in Throne of Glass, so the Rowans and Gadriels of the world, who Gadriel is a shifter. He changes from a Fae male, and they love to refer to themselves as Fae males, not human men. They say this every time. And he changes into a lion, and the others change into a wolf, and etc., etc., etc. But while they are Fae, they have elongated canines, a little bit of a vampire. They smell really, you know, intensely. They smell all kinds of things going on. And they have animalistic features, but they still look like men. They still look like extremely hot men. So I'd never call them monster smart, again, unless they started engaging with sex with each other as wolves and...
But this is a really good point. Like, I would say that, like, Dracula was like the original monster smut as like a vampire. Even though he looks human, in my mind, he's a monster. Like, maybe I'm thinking more about like the monsters you think of from like early days of Hollywood, Frankenstein and Dracula. And like, for me, Dracula's a monster, and he would fall into that, even though it's paranormal.
To be fair, I do agree. As in, even though I've gone on this tangent about looking human, I agree that a vampire is a monster. And for me, that comes from the undead status. So they were human once upon a time, but it's now an undead human for me that is now making it a monster. It's not a zombie. Apparently those two things are different. But it's not a zombie, but he's a monster because he's not a regular human.
Can you imagine zombie smuts?
I will throw up right now.
No. It must exist. It must exist, but no. Like pieces falling off them.
Oh,
so great.
You know what? It's not actual smut, but my little sister watches like Zombie High or something on Disney Channel and stuff, and it's like teen zombies, and like she fancies one of them and stuff like that. So I mean, it's a gateway. It's a gateway. No, where do you stand, Kimmy? Because I think Esme's on one side, I'm on the other. Megan's kind of in the middle. Where you at?
Yeah. So in our chat, I actually agreed with Esme, but you also make a good point with the human face.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering, what if they have a human face? Maybe they have wings, but they are blue or a different color.
Oh, but the color is blue.
Color.
Yeah.
What would you
what would I think then? Yeah, because and that's the thing. So it's all about the extent and origin of said human/monster. So the IPBs, the Sarkuis, for example, they're humanoid, so they stand upright, they have fingers and toes, but they also have a tail and horns, and they only have 4 fingers, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
They have an extra spur, they've got plated chest. Even though there's not a number to this, so please don't put me in like that box, they're ticking off too many non-human things to maintain the human part of it, if you see what I mean. You've got Reese, who is human all the way down to just having wings. And then you've got, you know, Rowan, who's human looking, but turns into a hawk. Okay. And then you've got a Minotaur who's walking around with a human lower part. Okay, that's the important part. but then he's got a bovine face. That's a monster. That's a monster.
I love how Charlie means the important part is the lower half, not the upper half.
Oh, gosh, I mean, that's what we're doing here.
I don't know, the snuffling of the cow, like the cow's face snuffling at me. No, I'm not sure. I don't think that's the important. That's the non-important part.
But this is what we said. Well, I think you said earlier. It was about they moved on to. Sorry, what was it? They didn't at first. The orcs were the ugliest thing I'd ever seen. But then because their relationship changed and got better, they suddenly got good looking. And I mean, it might not be orcs, but hands up, who's ever dated or been out with somebody ugly just because other stuff was working out? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe he was funny, but he was ugly as shit. You know?
Well, that's the thing. So like,
it can have the opposite way as well. You can see someone really attractive and then kind of get to know their personality, and somehow they just look uglier when you. But it's because you like know them and they're just not as attractive anymore.
Exactly.
It works the other way around as well.
Thank you. It does work the other way. There's someone who you wouldn't have necessarily wanted to get involved with, and then you learn them and they're funny, they're smart, they're whatever, all of these things, they're kind, they're charming. And it's like, you know what? And I think that works in the monster area.
Definitely.
For me, with the cow, no. But for some, maybe so. So what did you choose in the end, Kim? Did you were you a Lib Dem? Were you a Conservative? Or were you a Labour?
I'm Lib Dem then, obviously.
Yeah, you're a Lib Dem. What would I be?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go for a diplomatic and say it's a grey area.
Oh man, see, this is
you're Lib Dem.
One time.
First time the Lib Dems have had the most votes. Without getting political.
I was gonna say some little political banter for everybody. The one time we don't have a fifth member, so we could get like a majority vote. Damn it. Damn it. But no, that was cool. What was I gonna say? So the next one, what are we gonna touch on? So best examples of monster smut that we've read so far. Let's go with Ezzy first, because I think you've read the most, and then we'll go Kim, Megan, that way, just so we all know.
So best examples. I mean, I've got a few best examples, but they're my favorites for very different reasons. So, for example, I love pretty much. So CM Costa is her Morning Glory Milking Farm and also the Merbon Feast. I thought were brilliant examples of monster smut romance. Cow face and spider legs aside. But yeah, thought they were really good and they were really sweet as well. I also really enjoy at this point everything I've read by Tiffany Roberts, because the plot is also just so good. It's not just about a human girl falls in love with a big monster alien spider thingy. It's everything around it. And I have read not just monster smut, but just general, a lot of steamy reads as well. They focus too much on the sex side and not enough on the plot. Whereas I think it could be argued, it actually falls more into the other side. Maybe it focuses so much more on the plot. It doesn't really, there could be more sex, maybe. I don't know. But I just really enjoy it. That's why I like.
Cool. Good stuff. Kimmy?
I liked, so I haven't read much monster smut, but I liked Ice Planet Barbarians, and I am intrigued by the spur. Yeah, maybe I see a little rabbit. That's just very interesting. And I was just thinking, maybe they're not really monsters, but in the Nevernight series, you have the brother and sister. And, I forgot his name, but the blood.
Adonai, I think.
Adonai. And at some point he is feeding. And he is, so he cut open this girl, and then the blood is dripping down from her chest, and he is going down on her while just feeding, and that was just so hilarious.
Don't be afraid.
Is the girl alive or dead? Is it like
she's alive.
She's
alive. She's
enjoying
taking
it. She's happy. She
the best time.
She's happy living her best life. That's a good one.
I was not turned on by this at all, just to be clear. But I was so
it was
intrigued
interesting
by how it happened and what was described. And after that, I just had to put it down for a bit and just process. But that was an impressive
I like that you mentioned Nevernight, because that made me think of Empire of the Vampire, so Jay Kristoff's latest book, and it wasn't not that it wasn't consensual. So the young Gabriel, he's he's about 16 or 15 or something, and he's got like a girlfriend or some girl like he's secretly seeing, and there's a whole it's a tiny little scene, but she's on her period and he can smell it. Like, he's a half vampire, guys, just to make that clear. And he's kissing her and doing whatever, and he's about to go down on her, and she's all loving it, thinking it's going to be the normal thing, and then he bites her and drinks her menstruation, and it's just like, just at what? Absolutely. And the thing is, why I find this so hilarious, when I read it first, I was like, wait, what? And then I was talking to Jay Kristoff. I messaged him, because obviously he's my best friend, guys. And I messaged him and I said, just to clarify, like, did he do this? Because I just needed to know, across the board, whether this was what happened. And he was like, yeah, he did. I was just like, okay, fine, cool. I'm gonna go home. But like you said, it wasn't a turn on, but it was interesting because who has seen Empire with the Vampire? Interview with the Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the scene when Lestat is obviously drinking from the prostitute's breast when they're in that kind of phase. And before she actually sees the blood on him, she's absolutely loving it. So, do you know what I mean? She's all, oh my gosh, your kiss is so intense, or whatever she says. So there must be something about this kind of drinking your essence thing, both with Adonai, with Gabe, with Lestat, that might be a bit euphoric, if you see what I'm going.
It comes up loads in the vampire romance, like what is it, From Blood and Ash, the second book more. It's a big turn on. In so many of the vampire books, it's like the drinking of the blood is like a really big turn on, and it's like very like makes them really horny basically when the guy bites them. So it's definitely like a kink within that genre that keeps on being kind of exploited and written about. What I find really interesting about these fantasy genres and this monster smut and stuff, like, I don't know where it originates, but somebody writes a certain part of the kink. Mm-hmm. And then it just continues and continues and continues until the point that it becomes part of that. So I don't know whether that was a thing back in Dracula days, or if anything was written about his bite being a turn on in the original books. But now it's been written and it's been like done so much that it's just like almost, part of it when people write it. So I find that really interesting, how that kind of grows into being.
What's the word for that? Is it becomes canon? Is that the right term?
I think so, yeah.
Like when somebody decides, it's like Charlie Bowater's initial picture of the inner circle of Agatha, and now it's just everybody based what they look like on that, and it's just like you cannot tell her any different now. This is what they look like. So I definitely get that. What was your recommendation? Sorry, and we'll go on to the last bit.
Mine is IPB, Ice Planet Barbarian, all the way. I've read so many of them. I started them in Christmas time. I think I read my first one just after Christmas, and I think I read like one a day for like 10 days, and I did the first 2 books literally one a day, and I was just
that is it.
So that is the hill I'm prepared to die on. That is the best monster and like paranormal smut out there. I just love them.
Awesome stuff. So now, guys, those are our best examples. As you saw earlier, there were some recommendations going across the screen. They'll be in the description once we've finished with this. That's fine. But what we need your help with, so next month is June, and it's also Pride Month. Yay. So we've decided to read some books that focus on LGBTQ plus relationships or situationships, whichever one, it's all out there. But like you have with Monster Smart or Reverse Harem, our little minds, we don't know enough of them, so guys, we need your recommendations. You let us know one, and then we search that, and then we're just going to find a million of them, and it's going to be great. So once the live is finished, we're going to post it on the Team Steam Queens story, asking for your recommendations for all books that we could read during the month, or a book or two that we could read during the month of June, and then we'll discuss that in next month's stream, which we've not thought of a name yet, but we'll get there, I think. Yeah, so check that on the stories, and then we'll do a poll, I think. Is that right? Yeah, we'll do a poll from the different suggestions we've got, and then let us know if you want to join us for that read. I think it's going to be really, really, really fun. And I think that's it. We can wrap up with some decent time, but I really enjoyed that one, guys. I've been laughing for ages.
There were some fun books to read, I have to admit. I definitely preferred Monster Maid to Reverse Harem April, whatever it was. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely prefer Monster Smut to RH. I think it was definitely a lot more fun, and the books are just, a lot of the books are just super silly, which is great.
That's it. They don't take themselves too seriously, whereas some reverse harems really think they're the next literary, they're trying to be something they don't need to be. And it's just like, just be sexy and move on. Get the fuck out there. But cool. So we will let you guys know the date of the next stream and all these kind of things. So thanks so much. And we'll see you guys again next month.
See you next month, guys.
Cool. Bye-bye.
Bye.